What is up, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Mitch Gray Show. Oh, every time I start a podcast, I'm so excited. But I'm telling you, my excitement level is growing that much every single day. I promised you at the end of last year that I'm going to do everything I can to inspire you to that place of deeper living and strength and a life that you can be super proud of. And so that's what we're doing. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can see my left, I think, on your video screen. Or if you're watching this later on YouTube, I have another wonderful guest. I will introduce her in a second. Make sure you subscribe to The Mitch Gray Show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure you follow us on social media at mgraymedia. And go subscribe to our YouTube channel because all of our podcasts now are up on YouTube so you can see my crazy faces when I'm talking and really getting into it, and that's an awesome thing. Okay, my guest today is someone, again, this is the second guest in a row. Actually, all three of my guests I've had so far this year I've met via social media. So the miracle of social media and technology, even though it frustrates us, it's a miraculous thing. So a person that I think is probably going to become a dear friend in life, I'm telling you, when I give you her Instagram handle, you must follow it. She's a great follow. She tells her story, and she does it in a manner that is honest and vulnerable and raw. And so my new friend and guest on the Mitch Gray Show, Amanda Ruane. Amanda, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Mitch, for having me on here. I mean, I love your show. I love everything you're about. I just respect you so much for helping inspire so many people. It really, we need more people in this world like you.
Yes, thank you. You are welcome, and thank you for being on the show. And I got your last name right, didn't I?
Yes.
So I told you the other day when I sent you that message, I'm like, no, I want to get it right because I've heard people interview and they jack up the name, and it's like, wait, you couldn't take 10 seconds?
Yes, I know. It's okay. I'm so used to it. It's funny because people, my husband and I, we look exotic, so they love to spice it up. They like to say Ruane. Yeah. But I'm like, no, his grandfather was Irish. It's Celtic, and it means red.
It means
it's just
red.
Ruane. Red, yeah.
Red, okay. Okay, so that's interesting. It's Celtic. Ruane is Celtic. I learned something new. We're done. That's all I needed is to learn something Celtic today.
I can leave now?
Yeah, no, we don't want you to leave yet. Friends, make sure you follow on Instagram. Follow Amanda. It's Amanda, just like it sounds, .thick, THICK, to fit. So THICKTOFIT. amanda.thicktofit. I love saying that because it's so silly, but it tells your story, right? And I have a feeling it probably tells your stories in more ways than one. And so, so we're going to do. So Amanda, you've been in the modeling industry. You've been in the, what do you just say, you've done shows? Like, is there like the fitness? Like, what is the language for that when you've done fitness shows?
Okay, so I've only done one fitness show, or it's a competition, bodybuilding competition. And that was this September. That was my first show, and I went through a whole journey to get there. It kind of all started when I moved down to Texas with my husband. He was here to start chiropractic school. We were like broke as anything. I was working this job that I was working so many hours, and I didn't get a lot of pay. My husband was in school all day, and like we had no bed. We had to like layer blankets on the floor. Like our little table was like not even a table, it was a stool. And it was so funny. It was the fun time of life. Yes. But I had been a dancer most of my life up until then, and we moved away, and since we were working so much, I was like, oh my gosh, we gotta get this budget together. We gotta make sure we can relax at night. And after a long day, we would come together and we would just go and get junk food. And junk food was like the best. And because it was cheap, it fit our budget, and it was easy, and it was so comforting because, man, after a long day, that's, burger sounds pretty good.
We can all relate to that, right? Every single person listening can relate to that.
Exactly. And then we, the weight started piling on. And then one day my husband found me passed out. And to be honest with you, I had been passing out like a lot since like high school, but doctors always kind of dismissed it. And then my husband found me having a seizure, and we were like, oh gosh, this is not good. And then the seizure led into another one, and then I eventually was diagnosed with epilepsy.
Right.
Sorry, I'm like totally getting into my story.
I love it. Do it. Go where you want to go.
I'm sorry. It's just coming to me. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, go where you want to go.
But yeah, I was diagnosed, and then it completely shook me. Honestly, I had already struggled with like anxiety and depression, but it just like escalated so much more. And it was, I call it like I went through a mourning period, because it's like the person I was, the whole life that I had grown for like those 20 years, was no longer here. Like it was like she died, and now I'm in this new body, and I have no idea how to live in it or what to expect, or honestly, I had no idea how long I was going to live, because that is the constant fear with epilepsy, because you risk falling or hurting yourself much more than the average person, and increases that death risk. So, it got real bad, and I hit rock bottom, and so I just stuffed my face even more, because I was like, yes. Next thing I knew, it was like less than 6 months, I gained like 60 pounds of body fat. Like,
wow.
It was bad.
Wow.
And then, I'm sorry, I can continue.
No, that's good.
It was too long.
So definitely a coping mechanism.
Oh yeah. Food was everything. I was going to like Dairy Queen like twice a day, and I would go to like Chick-fil-A and like hide it from my husband. Like food was an addiction. 100%. It was like if I didn't get my fix, I would have like a panic attack. I'd be like, no, I need to get it. I need to eat the food, the junk food. I need to eat until I'm like, I'm almost going to throw up. Like it was so bad.
Were there certain foods that you found yourself more addicted to than others?
Yes, French fries. Really? I was obsessed with like French fries, like milkshakes. It was like just like your standard American junk food.
Right.
Because I didn't grow up eating that stuff. My mom is from Guatemala, and we grew up eating like, beans and rice and tortillas. And I mean, it was carbier, but at least it was homemade and healthier portions. Right. My family does love food. They love to eat, but at least they love the art of actual home cooking and things like that, not junk food. I was never really allowed to have junk food. And so it was like this new thing that I was like, oh yes, I'm going to go at it. And then all of a sudden, I still, even though I was going through like so much depression, dealing with my new diagnosis and stuffing my face, and just literally almost like my doctor was like, you're going to be diabetic if you keep going. And then my brother calls me and he's like, hey, guess what? I'm engaged. And I was like, yay, I'm so excited for you. When's the wedding? And he's like, it's in 6 months and it's in Miami. And I was like, oh no, my family is going to see me like this. And I was like, no, I don't want to be in those wedding pictures like this. And so I made it a goal to lose the weight in those 6 months. So I started like doing this crazy diet where I just was barely eating anything, and then I was just doing tons of cardio.
Right.
And I was having like all these seizures still going because I was stressed. I hated my body. I hated myself, honestly. It was so rough, but I made it through those 6 months. I did lose a significant amount of weight, and everyone was like, yay, good for you, that's amazing. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing. But at that wedding, and they're taking those pictures, I was still like, ugh, I look disgusting. Ugh, I hate myself. Oh gosh, like, I'm still so worthless. Like, the depression was still there, even though I lost the weight. Losing the weight didn't fix anything.
Right.
And, the holidays went by, and then in February, I had a strong seizure that made me fall, like, straight onto my face. And my husband said I was, like, out for almost an hour. And when I woke up, the left side of my face was, like, completely paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, oh, my gosh, did you just have a stroke? And so, of course, my husband's, like, panicking. We go to the hospital. And then as we're at the hospital, in the waiting room, I start to feel, like, the numbness start to, like, spread down my arm. And then, like, to my stomach, and then down to my hip, and then my knee. And then I was like, oh, my gosh, I can't feel my foot. And then it was just, I was completely paralyzed from the left side, down the left side of my entire body.
How long did that last?
It lasted for a while. I was in the hospital for about a week, and it was horrible because I was getting these like, have you ever had a headache that was just so bad you just had to, like, grab your head and, like, do this? But it was like that, like, times 100. It was an intense migraine, and it was throughout the whole hospital stay. So they put me in this, I felt like a little bat, like, in the dark room. I couldn't watch TV very much. Even like when my mom came down, because obviously it was my poor husband, we're still trying to get by at this point. And so he still had to work while I was in the hospital. And my mom came down to help. And even her, she was, like, having to whisper to me because, like, the migraines are so intense. And I couldn't use the bathroom without calling a nurse or having someone in the room. It was so embarrassing. And they have all these cameras on me because I was such a liability to them.
Yeah.
And, but they had me on the craziest pain meds too. They had me on Keppra, which is, like, the strongest pain medication for people who have seizures. And I was still having the seizures. Oh, wow. And the migraines were so intense. And one night I was just, like, towards the end of the week, I was just, like, slamming on the button being like, I need pain meds. Like, where's the nurse? I was screaming. I was literally screaming. Like, my mom said she could hear me, like, down the hallway. And it was really bad. And my husband was like, that's it. I'm a chiropractor. He's a Gonstead chiropractor. It's a very specific style of chiropractic. Okay. And he was like, I'm going to do what I can to help relieve you. See if it even works. Right. And he sat me down and he adjusted my atlas, and my left side of my face, like, just, like, went whoop, like it came back. It wasn't like
instantly.
Yes.
Wow. And
we were like, holy cow. Like, this means this is an issue within the nerves. We gotta see what else we can do from here. And so, the nurses saw that my face came back, and they let me go home. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. Because when I was in the hospital bed, to be honest with you, like, I didn't want to live anymore. I honestly was like, I want to die. But once I was released from the hospital, I said, you know what, if I get my body back, I'm gonna give it one more shot. And I'm sorry, I get, like, really emotional.
No, that's perfectly fine. Yes.
I said, if I get my leg back and the ability to walk back, I'm gonna give it one more shot, and I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to live my life to the fullest. Yes. And so I started going to my husband's mentor, and he started adjusting me, and it took about 2 months for, eventually my arm came back, and then the leg was the one that was stubborn. It took a while. It was awful because I was just in bed for months, and the weight was just packing on again, and but eventually I got my leg back, and I was like, yes, I'm here.
So how old were you at this when all this is happening? How old are you?
Oh, I mean, that was 2018, so 23.
Yeah. So really, really young. It's like it's like when we're all young, and I see it when I work with young people. It's like the invincibility aspect, right? It's like, I can handle anything. I can get through anything, especially physically. As young people, we just think, no, we're going to live a long time. And
so naive.
Yes,
such idiots.
Yes, and then it's like something like this happens that is a watershed moment at that young of an age. And so, yeah, to be almost facing your life in the mirror and be going, I either decide to do something or I don't.
Exactly. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're so right. I think I'm so grateful.
Yes.
I'm so happy this happened to me because I felt like it just helped me speed up all the life experience a little bit.
All the things that 35, 40-year-olds are learning, you're like, no, I got this. At 24, I got
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'm still definitely learning, but man, it did help me achieve a lot of perspective very quickly. And then it made me think about a lot, I was tired of thinking about myself. I was like, woe is me, whatever. But it gave me more perspective about realizing, there are people who don't have the opportunity to do half the things I could do without my legs, So it just really just gave me so much more awareness and perspective. And then from there, my husband had already done a bodybuilding competition once. And then it was coming up to him wanting to do it again. And he was like, I'm going to go see my coach. And I was like, can I come with you? I want to kind of see if I should do it. I don't know. I'm like, we all know I'm not going to be able to do it. I can never follow through. And, but I went and we decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I was like, oh, God. And, we were talking about this before we started live, but we were just saying, being held accountable. I started talking to my family about it, and they're like, okay, that's nice. Obviously totally not believing that I was going to do it. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm not going to do it either, but let's just try it out. And then the coach that I was with, he was like, I do recommend putting on some muscle. And this is kind of before I really started following his actual plan that an actual coach would recommend. And I started taking it a little too I need to put on muscle. That my ignorance, I was like, that means I need to eat a lot more and lift heavy, which in most cases that's true. But there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Yes, and I did it the wrong way. And I was still eating that junk food because I told you I had such a strong addiction to that food because I was still kind of suffering from that depression and anxiety. And so I was going to the gym. I started with the little baby steps. I was so insecure. I was looking around at the gym and I was like, because the first time I lost weight, I pretty much had a private gym. In my apartment complex, no one ever used it, and so I was just doing that on my own. It was not me actually understanding fitness and the whole, going to the gym experience. So, I felt like this was really when my weight loss journey started. And I was fluffy. Oh my goodness. I was definitely a lot bigger.
Did you just use the word fluffy?
I was
That's
fluffy.
your adjective, fluffy. Yes.
Yeah, I felt real fluffy every time I went to the gym and looked in that mirror, and I would get on the cardio machines and I'd be out of breath and I would be so embarrassed and I would look like an idiot trying to figure out all the equipment. It was so bad. Oh my gosh. And I'm thankful that I had my husband to kind of, because he's experienced in the fitness industry, and he kind of was just like, but to be honest with you, he was really working on his body. He had to work on his body. He didn't have time to train me. So honestly, I had to just learn it all through the internet. YouTube is amazing. YouTube. Yes. Yeah. Well, at first, at least, before I started some real coaching. Yeah. And so I was lifting heavy and still stuffing my face with Big Macs. It was not good. And then my, people around me, I felt like they started to notice me gaining the weight, or at least in my own mind, I started becoming so much more subconscious, and I was like, oh no, I'm gaining it all again. No one's going to believe me because I said I was competing, and so it began this whole vicious cycle in my mind. But then eventually, I was like, Amanda, you've really, really got to do what this coach is telling you to do. Right. And I did. I successfully did one day. And I was like, yes!
Yes.
You know, honestly, it all comes down to those little victories like that.
Yes.
And then I did it again and again, and then I started having successful weeks.
Yes.
And it just, next thing you know, like I starting to look athletic, and I couldn't believe my acting.
Not fluffy.
And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Starting to look a little bit more like the girl I was used to looking at in the mirror when I was a dancer.
Right.
But even as a dancer, I was still eating brownies before practice because I was young. I had a good metabolism, and I was doing so much, aerobic cardio that my body was able to be lean even through that. So this time I was starting to look like my old self, but this time I looked better. Like I was looking like I had a little more muscle, and I was actually feeling good because I was eating, healthy vegetables and amounts of proteins and fats and carbohydrates. And I was starting to just blossom. And then the seizures started to reduce, or they started to weaken. I still had them about every 2 weeks, and honestly, that's a regular thing for me.
Right.
So that's good for me to have them every 2 weeks. And then September came, and I was on that stage, and they called my name out, or my number out. I had to look down. I was like, wait, is that my number?
I think you guys messed up. Hold on.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I think you messed up.
Because in my mind, I was so hard on myself. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I had a 6-pack, and I was like, still, nah, there's no way. And it was the open division, and I knew, I was like, oh, this is the hardest one to even place. And they were like, second place goes to such and such. And I was like, there's no one else on this stage.
Oh, wow.
This is just, wait. Oh, and it hit me. And I just started crying like a big old drama baby. And I was like, this is so embarrassing. Everybody probably thinks I'm so dramatic. And they put that little medal over my neck, and I was like, oh my gosh. It was the most amazing feeling I had. Just all of the trauma and the pain and the depression and everything that I had gone through in that journey was just, it felt like, oh my gosh, this is it. This was why I did it all. And it felt incredible. I can't believe I got first place and my first show in open, and I have so many people to thank for that. And it was amazing. And then, now we're here. I did go through a little moment of struggling with, gaining a healthy body fat, because in my mind, some days I look in the mirror and I see big Amanda. Sometimes I see like crazy abs Amanda. And then now I'm like right in between, and I'm so healthy. I'm happy. I'm thriving now. Right. But it did take me a minute to figure out that it was okay not to have a 6-pack anymore.
Yes.
I don't need to be Miss Crazy ripped and lean.
Right.
Because honestly, that's unhealthy for your thyroid and all kinds of things if you're always that lean. I'm just really grateful that I'm here now. Yeah. And I'm sorry that was a long story, but that's generally my story. And
no, I love
background as to where I'm at and what I'm here for. So.
Yeah, there's always this idea of when you're dealing with turmoil, like what you dealt with. There's always this idea that I think so many times we focus so much on surviving the turmoil that we forget that there's the after. Yeah. And you see that with a lot of people. That's kind of the relapse cycle. The relapse cycle is we survived the turmoil, but through the turmoil did we lay a strong enough foundation that when the after comes, we have somewhere to find ourselves.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where, in a way, that's kind of where I hear you saying that you're at. You're kind of laying that foundation of being okay in your skin, being okay where you're at, and saying, I have the self-approval to be okay where I'm at. And some days it's 6-pack abs, and some days it's not. But either way is okay. And that's where it ties into the mental, emotional, spiritual side, right? I love the part of your story. Well, I don't love that it happened to you, but I love the idealism of you're at the wedding, you've lost the weight, everyone's saying you look great, but inside you're like, but I feel like I'm not there.
Exactly.
And
that's sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm talking too much. No, but I was just gonna say, like, that's why I've been sharing this experience through social media, and I'm just so blessed to have anyone even care or follow my story. And I get these messages a lot of the times from girls who say, I want to look like you, I want to have abs, you must be so happy because you model and you do all these things. But I'm just like, listen, that's not where my happiness comes from. Yes. I can do all these things because I finally am starting to touch the surface of loving myself and understanding who I am. And honestly, once you figure that out, it solves a lot of your problems, and it gives you the ability to serve other people because you're not so worried about yourself anymore, which is what we should all aspire to do. I still have my down days and hard times, and the depression does hit me every now and then, but it's nowhere as bad as it used to be, and I felt like now I'm actually able to help more people, and I would love for the rest of the world to be able to get to that point too, like, I don't know, I think we all just need to go through these journeys of trauma and hardship, and hopefully, in the end, it's all about how you see it and how you use it. You can use it as opportunity to grow, or you can let it completely destroy you. It's just a choice.
That's amazing you say that. That's literally what we talked about on Tuesday on the show. That is literally what you just said. Yeah, it's like, I see so many people that are like, well, I don't want to go through the I kind of view it as like, when you're trying to find, like when you're climbing mountains or hiking or trying to find this beautiful place, almost every single time you have to go through something that's very difficult, whether it's a tunnel or whether it's climbing a steep, hill or something. And life is very much that way. It's like to get to the beautiful side, you have to go through that struggle. There's no way around it. And I think so many people avoid the struggle. Either they're in the middle of the struggle and they're in denial, much like probably the situation you lived in with yourself. I'm okay, nothing's wrong, and then you find yourself face down, passed out, having a seizure. Okay, something's wrong. And so many people go through that. It's like denial. And the one thing I love thinking about is looking in the mirror at our reflection. The reflection always tells the truth.
Oh, yeah.
The kicker is, are we going to listen to that truth and adjust to it? Or are we going to believe the lies that the voices in our head tell us? You're not good enough. You'll never be able to succeed. The reflection is just telling us how to adjust to life. Like the bags under your eyes tell you need to get more sleep. Or the fluffiness tells you eat less fries. Like the reflection is just telling you the truth. Then you get to decide if you're going to give that truth power or if you're going to let it motivate you to push you forward. And that's what I love about your story is you're. So I have to ask though before I go on. So you said you're still dealing with seizures every 2 weeks. Like how does that impact? I would have to think. I've never been in that situation, but I would have to think mentally. You have to kind of make sure you're on your game so you're prepared for those moments. I mean, I'm totally assuming here, but How is that impacting you? What are you doing in that situation?
It's definitely a trial because I don't think the hardest part is it's not what I have to deal with, it's what my family and friends have to deal with, honestly. Yeah. I think epilepsy is harder on your immediate network and community than it is on the actual individual because, when you have your seizures, you're out. And, you do have to suffer with the pain and the fear and not knowing if you're going to wake up sometimes. Recently, I think it was a couple months ago, I had such a bad panic attack because I let my anxiety get over me. Like I said, I still struggle with it. It's something that I still have to deal with my anxiety. Like my anxiety used to be so bad. I used to have panic attacks about every little thing. Like I can't even tell you. But I had a panic attack a couple of months ago because I had this business deal that we were dealing with some kind of issue with the city and the landlord, and it was a big mess. And I let it overcome me, because I honestly, for a long time, I've been having a good track record of not letting it. But that one time I just had a moment of weakness and I let it overcome me. I had a panic attack and it turned into a seizure. And then all of a sudden, my husband says I stopped breathing completely. And this is the first time that that's ever happened, where I'm like, my chest wasn't rising and falling. He was listening. He put his ear next to my mouth to see if any kind of breath was coming out. And once it just overcame him, it was just like sheer panic on my poor husband. And he had to like give me CPR. He full on had to give me CPR. And I came back, and thank goodness, I'm here today to talk to you. But that also was like another one of many lessons that I've learned this year, or in 2018. But that one really was an extra layer of me realizing, okay, you've been given another chance at life. Yeah. What can you do to do even better? It's so funny. They're like, I love my seizures, because every time I have one, it's like a reboot. I'm like a little broken computer.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I want people to hear that again. You literally just said you love your seizures, because it's almost like you've turned them into an empowering situation.
Yeah.
That you're like, no. I am an overcomer, and this does not define me. Oh my gosh, thank you. That is amazing.
Thank you. Because it's taken me a long time to get to this point. And if anyone watching has anyone who has epilepsy, or honestly any form of invisible or any chronic illness, I just hope they know that they can empower themselves too, because I've reached out to a lot of other epileptics, and some of them are much worse off than I am. Right. I'm so lucky that I only have mine every 2 weeks. Some people can't even go 5 minutes without having a seizure. And it really means a lot to have you acknowledge that, because it is a process. It is so hard to come to that point and empower yourself, because it is so debilitating. And it's not only that, but it's completely misunderstood.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of awareness about it. Also, if you're watching, if anyone has a seizure, check for a bracelet. This is mine.
Thank you can you hold that up to the camera again?
I'm getting a new one because this one's too fancy. You can't read it very well.
Okay, so can you tell anyone that's watching or listening that may have someone in their lives or dealing with that and they don't have that tool, like because that's something they can just order somewhere? Is it like what? How does that work?
Well, I ordered mine online. Yeah, you can get them online. They have all kinds. If you're a man or a woman, you can customize them. But the main thing is spreading awareness. Right. When most people, a lot of the general public don't know that if you have a seizure, or if you see someone having a seizure, that you should check for a bracelet first. If they're not wearing a bracelet, definitely call 911 right away, because they could be going through some other kind of illness. But if they're wearing a bracelet, it usually has instructions for what to do. Mine is to call my husband, honestly. And then if they don't become conscious within like 5 minutes, you have to call 911, even if they're wearing the bracelet.
Wow, that is interesting. Yes.
But yeah, most of the time it could be a simple fix. Because a lot of the times, like I said, I'm like a broken computer. If I kind of just glitch out a little bit. and then
I don't mean to laugh at it.
I have to laugh because it's funny to me. It's not funny for everyone else. I had one at the gym, and like all these people that had seen me go to the gym all the time, they had no idea I was epileptic. Right. They see me have a seizure, and they were all panicked. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like I popped right back. I was in a lot of pain, but I popped right back, and I was like, no, guys, like it's fine. I'm epileptic. This is a normal part of my life. Right. And just like. They all, like, their faces, like, turn completely pale.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, honestly,
I feel bad for them.
Like, I'm around people a lot, and I've been around people a lot for a long time, and I've rarely seen someone so it's not something that people deal with. You know, people don't see that on an everyday basis, and And so, yeah, I could see people kind of going, like, what's happening right now? What do I do? So,
I've never seen someone have a seizure, honestly.
Yeah, outside of yourself.
I've never seen it, so I don't know what it's like.
Yeah. But that's interesting. Yeah. So I want to say again, if we do have anyone listening or watching and you have issues with not just epilepsy, but anything else, I love that idea of having a bracelet or whatever to give people that. It's almost like you're giving people that could help you instructions on how to help you, I guess, and you kind of alluded to that. So that's wonderful. That is. So I'm just asking a lot of questions because I've never dealt with this. Is epilepsy? Is it different for every person? Like, do they know the root of the problem, and they just can't do anything about it? Is it just something that's always going to be unknown? Like.
Yeah, so you kind of did say it right there. We know more about the ocean than we do about epilepsy, and we know more about space than we know about the ocean. So it's kind of, because the human brain is so complicated.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and to be able to fully understand it, you need a lot of live brains. And I don't want to get into the science of it, but you all understand. Yeah, it's a very difficult disease to understand for most doctors. I've been through several neurologists, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there being like, have you tried CBD? Have you tried this medicine? Have you tried that medicine? And that's another frustration that a lot of people with chronic illness go through is people giving you their recommendations, which you have to be humble and listen because they're just trying to help you. Yeah. They're doing it out of love and concern. But it does get a little old because it's like, yes, I've tried that. Yes, I've tried that. Yes, I've tried that. But yeah, honestly, every individual is so unique. Mine is from trauma. The doctors were able to narrow that down. There was scarring in my brain that I used to be a dancer and I had fallen from doing some tricks and things, and I had a few concussions. One was bad enough where I was it was in high school. And that's why I say I was starting to pass out, but no seizures in high school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because that was immediately after some of the concussions I was having. But yeah, it's completely unique to the individual, including the actual symptoms and the triggers. Some people are triggered by certain smells, sounds, obviously flashing lights. Like when I go to a movie, I have to be pretty careful about that. Or sometimes when I'm just scrolling through my feed, if there's something that's like blah, 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 and I'm in bed and it's night and it's dark everywhere, I'm just like, whoop, automatic seizure. And I actually had one where I was just scrolling as I was walking to the bathroom, and there was something, it was like a video of these car headlights, they just went boom, 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 and it triggered a seizure so fast, and I fell, and I think I broke one rib, and I totally bruised my cheek. It was
my gosh,
so embarrassing.
Oh my
gosh. This big welt, and my husband's a big strong man, and so people are like, oh no, and I'm like, no, I promise.
I did this to myself. I did this to myself. No, he didn't.
Yeah. That's another thing. Or you get, I have scars on my tongue along the sides from biting it so much, or the inner side of my cheeks. I look like what the Joker in a Dark Knight looked like on the outside is what I look on the inside of my cheeks.
Oh my.
It's a lot of fun. But I love that you're asking all these amazing questions because if every epileptic just wants to be heard and understood.
Yes.
And what we want you to know is to, just understand that this is a regular part of life. We're obviously doing everything we can to solve the problem.
Right.
And we just need your support after every seizure. And motivation is what we need a lot of the time to just continue on, because it's a difficult life. It's not an easy one, and it isn't one that we choose. That's the hardest part.
Right.
Sometimes you're like, I didn't choose this life. Sometimes you won't get hired for things because people are scared that you're going to have seizures. Yeah. That's another aspect of it. It's very difficult to receive employment.
Right.
Difficult to drive. I thank goodness I'm able to drive. My doctor hasn't taken my license away yet because I usually can feel very strong aura for almost an hour before I have a seizure. But I don't know. Within the next couple of years, I might not be able to drive. We'll see. But there's lots of things to think about in that aspect.
So, on your Instagram feed the other day, actually, I guess it was yesterday, wasn't it? You mentioned, I guess you had a seizure. Was it yesterday? Or
it was.
Okay.
Wasn't yesterday. It was the night before yesterday.
Okay, that's right. So how long does it? I know. I'm like, I have no idea what day of the week it is. I'm surprised we even made it to our appointment. Just kidding. How long does it take you to recover? Does it depend on the like strength of the seizure, or?
Yeah, it does depend. Some epileptics will tell you can even have them, like when I'm talking to you right now, I can have a moment where I just like, and then I continue talking because I'll have a little tiny one.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it does depend on the intensity of the seizure. But I've noticed that the biggest trigger for me is my mental health, making sure that I'm reducing my stress levels. Stress levels, it triggers them and makes them so much more intense. My body is so stupid. My body's like, we're under attack.
Right. So that's interesting you say that, because I was going to lead into the depression side of all this, because you said you and I by the way, I spent a couple of years of my life battling pretty deep and dark depression, and what I don't know that there's medical studies out there to prove this. I think there actually may be, but I kind of have the belief that some of us have the DNA and propensity toward more depressive thoughts and ideas about ourselves. I also think circumstances in life can trigger that as well. But I would say, first of all, really, really, really good work on preparing yourself, because in my head, I'm trying to put myself in those situations, and it would just seem like you've battled the depression physically and mentally, and now there's still those things. That's why it's like magic to me that you try and view those seizures as empowering. That's like, that is so healing. I mean, it's healing for me to hear, and it has to be healing for you to think that about yourself. And I know also that has to be a little bit of a permissive door, right? That on the days you have those darker thoughts, you can say, no. I am empowered, and no matter what happens, it's going to be good, no matter what happens. So how are you? There are millions of people that deal with depression, and so many of us that deal with it don't ever ask for help. What are some things you would give? What would you gift someone who is dealing with those negative thoughts and that idea of depression?
The main thing is you have to accept that it's there. A lot of us who struggle with depression are like, what's wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. Yeah. There's nothing wrong. It's just,
honestly, yeah. There's nothing wrong. What you just said, you were like talking about DNA and different things. I have a perfect example, because my husband does not suffer from and never really has suffered from depression. But his life story is so much more traumatic and awful than mine.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm such a spoiled brat over here feeling sorry for myself when there's children in the world that don't even know if they're going to survive because of war or famine or abuse, and I'm just over here like, I feel sad. But in reality, it's so much more than that. I mean, because we only know our individual existence. We don't know anything different. It's nice to think, okay, you're better off than other people. And it does help on occasion, on the times where I really am just complaining. But there's no way to explain that feeling of like a weight in your chest and that numbness in your entire body. I remember I was just laying in bed watching the ceiling fan and just like, I don't exist. I feel nothing. And that feeling is so real. You can't tell me I'm just making that up in my mind and that I'm choosing this, because I was trying every method. I was trying, watching motivational videos every day. Like Tony Robbins, I'm not going to lie, actually really helped me a lot.
Yeah, no, he's legit.
Like, and Gary Vee, all those guys, they're amazing. And Mel Robbins too. Like there's several other individuals. I mean, TED Talks, all of it. I mean, those things really helped me when I was down, but it wasn't everything. It wasn't the cure. And then I tried different methods. I've tried the exercise, tried the healthy diet. Those things helped for sure. 100% increased my mental, my ability to control my mental health. Seeking forms of media that uplift me and give me perspective. And then the last one that I've realized recently that I've started incorporating that has helped me so much more is journaling.
Yes.
And we all think that you have to write the super, super long thing, but sometimes if you just write this is how I felt today, this is why, and that's it. And the only reason it's not for you in that moment, it's not for you in that moment to feel better. It's for you to keep track of how you're feeling at certain times and what triggers that. And it just helps you understand the ups and downs, because with depression, it's all over the place. You sometimes, my husband notices, I have a lot of friends that tell me, Amanda, you're so hyper, you're so crazy. And then other times they'll hang out with me and I'm just like, hey, what's up? It just, it's the extremes. And that's a normal part of the diagnosis. You have high energy, low energy, and it's very hard to keep track of, whether or not this is my mind telling me I'm happy or I'm generally actually enjoying my environment and experiences. So keeping track of that is so helpful. Surrounding yourself with positive media, positivity. I know it's harder than it sounds, but getting out of bed, I love Mel Robbins' 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method that she does, count to 5, shoot yourself up like a rocket. Get out of bed and literally just look at your feet. There was a time where I was just looking at my feet and being like, I need to put socks on these feet. Then I need to put shoes on them. Or first I needed to get dressed, but you know what I mean.
Just socks and shoes today. That's enough.
Figure it out. But that's what I did. I was just focused on the little individual steps. Okay, now I'm going to walk out this door. Now I live on the 3rd floor. Now I'm going to walk down these stairs. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to drive to the gym. I'm going to pull up this YouTube video of this set of exercises, and I'm going to just do each set. And it's just all about those 10-second moments, just getting through that, and then giving yourself those little tiny victories, because every victory adds up to your confidence and your feeling that you are in control. Because a lot of us who are going through depression feel like we have no control, and a lot of the time I would get so frustrated because I was going to different therapists and I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm not depressed about me. I'm depressed about the world.
Right. Yeah.
I'm depressed about all the horrible things that are going on. I'm depressed about the state of this and that and how I have no ability to help. And then I look at myself and then I have a little bit of my own, self-hate and depression, but it's all combined. And they would always just focus on, just on me. But now I'm starting to realize, I still am going to the therapist, and and I have no shame in that. I think everyone should, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
And she's helped me realize that a lot of what I believe is true is really a lot in my head. Mm-hmm. It's almost kind of nice to know that you're crazy.
Right. No, that's actually true.
Yeah, because she's like, you kind of over-exaggerate the negatives and you under-appreciate the positives.
Yes.
Because what I do is when something great happens that I've been able to achieve, even winning first place and all that, I was like, well, it was an easy show and, the girls. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Just completely watering it down, even though I worked so hard and it was a great success. I did that a lot to myself, and she helped me realize that I need to quiet down that negative voice and just turn up the volume on the, wow, great job.
Right.
And kind of, keep the negative voice just a little bit lower, because you still need that to be realistic, and that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is maintaining realism, because you don't want to be too overly optimistic, I feel like, because then you get...
That becomes arrogance. That becomes arrogance. Yeah.
Yep, arrogance and ignorance, because you can end up trusting someone too much without really assessing them, and you can get yourself in a bad situation. So honestly, I don't know if I have a cut and dry list exactly yet. I'm sure if I sat down and really wrote it, and I need to do that. But those are honestly the biggest methods for me, is just, healthy lifestyle, healthy environment, and intake of positive media, surrounding yourself with people who actually make you feel good about yourself, that don't cut you down, including your own family and close friends.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, it's like when I teach young people, especially when we're talking about what I call choosing your circle. It's like you've got all these circle layers of life when it comes to relationships, and you've got your middle core layer, and it's like that is the most important piece. Mm-hmm. And you better make sure that core layer of friends and family are right.
Mm-hmm. Because family's what you make it.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with blood relationship. Hopefully.
Yes, you want obviously want that closeness.
But that's not reality. That's not reality. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. Very few of us have the perfect. Well, no one has the perfect family, but so many. Even if we grew up in a good family, there's still those times that maybe, and they, I think sometimes we're ignorant of the way we're treating people. Like for instance, my dad is a great dad. I wouldn't trade him for the world, but he was pretty critical. Like it was never like, hey, you played a good game tonight. It was, hey, you played a great game. You scored 32 points. You could have had 38. So there was always a but on the end. And I didn't realize until I was like 30, 35 years old. That messes you up. Oh, that messed me up major going into life, because not only did I project that on myself, but I projected that into all of my other relationships.
And then how long did it take you for you to realize this too?
Until I was 35, 36 years old. I mean, that was a part of, and I don't blame any of it on my dad. He did what he thought he was supposed to do, but a lot of that criticism was what pushed me to being a depressed person, being so hard on myself. I thought, man, by the time I'm 30 years old, I'm going to be a best-selling author and have a podcast that's crushing it and be selling music like crazy. And I got to 30 years old, and guess what? None of it was there. And so you wake up one day and you're like, I'm worthless. I didn't meet my own expectation. And there's an old ancient proverb that says, the greatest source of misery is expectation.
Yeah.
And so we set these expectations and we project expectations on others. And it's like, whoa, just slow. You know what I love about what you were talking about? You were talking about it from the aspect of depression, like I have to get out of bed. I have to put my socks on. I have to put my shoes on. I have to walk down the stairs. I think that's applicable to anyone. It's almost like this idea of the more we can be fully present in this moment and in this activity, the more value we give this moment, the less pressure we put on ourselves to perform.
Oh, so true. Because a lot of us really need to just forget our past completely. Because I went through some pretty serious traumas as a kid, and then so did my husband. But for some reason, those traumas I latched onto them and I let them define me for too long.
Yes. And
my husband's amazing. He went through way worse than me, and he's just like, whatever, it's in the past, it's not now. Right now, I'm really happy. I have you. I have my life. I'm happy. It only gets better. My life has only gotten better. And I'm like, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah. But over here, I've taken I'm still learning. It's still hard for me to let go of the past, but we really can't let it define us, and we need to forgive ourselves once we do let go.
Yes.
Because I've said this several times before in other forms of media, but I always say, you have to forgive yourself, be kind to yourself, because we're so hard. We're hard on ourselves because of other people who have been hard on us, like your situation with your father, or just different things. And I think we need to just give ourselves a little break, some room to breathe and relax, and then you can be more productive when you're not so stressed about being perfect all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's like the greatest grace we can extend is to ourselves.
Yes.
Because
it's like the mask.
Yeah, that's right. Once we learn to extend that grace and love to ourselves, then we have the ability to give it to others. But we try it in reverse, right? We give and give and give to others, and we never really sit.
Nothing left.
Yeah, we don't sit with ourselves. We don't sit in the moment of learning, who am I? What am I about? What do I need to let go of? And the past is a crazy thing because it's a chapter in our book. Uh-huh. the past doesn't define us, but you can't remove the past or we wouldn't be who we are today.
Yeah, you got to learn from it.
Yes.
Visit it on occasion to give you perspective and humility.
Yes.
I love doing that. But yeah, don't let it define you.
No.
And know that it's not, I mean, what is time exactly? Time is exactly what you make it into, how you use it, how you mold it and shape it. And you have so much power to create your future. I never even imagined that I'd be sitting here talking to you about this crazy story.
Right.
You know, when I started Instagram, I had 300 followers that were pretty much just my family.
Right.
And I was sharing these pictures of myself not knowing what I was doing, but I was trying to just keep myself accountable by sharing them, and it was embarrassing, and people thought I was vain for sharing them, but what they didn't know was this was just me trying to keep myself accountable and help other people through the journey as well. Yeah. And then now we're here, and it's just crazy because I started living more in the moment, and that's really all it took. I mean, and then the same thing with the future. You can't focus. You want to obviously set goals. You need goals to push you. You need to be uncomfortable with your current situation so that you can move forward. Right. But you can't focus too much on what you said, those crazy expectations. Yeah. Because, I'm almost careful right now. Like, I have these crazy expectations that I set recently. You know, everyone has their New Year's resolutions, and I set some pretty high ones. And I need to be careful too. I'm glad you've reminded me just to be a little more, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't try and make yourself into, you can't be Superwoman or Superman all in 1 year. So
right. Make it a lifetime. Don't make it 1 year. Yeah. So let's, tell us what you have planned. You shared something with me before. So we said we're going to put it out there, right? Talking about accountability. So, share with everyone.
This is my first time talking about it. Yeah. So. But so I've been sharing this journey on social media, like I said, and all of these amazing people have reached out to me through DMs or comments, and or even people I know personally, telling me, how much my story has inspired them. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, wow, I had no idea that this would help anyone like that, like to that extent of what they were telling me, these crazy details, these crazy experiences that they've gone through, much harder than my own. And I'm like, why did my story help you? And they're just so encouraging and uplifting and wonderful. And I've started to realize, there are so many people out there that can't relate to other people in the fitness industry because they're dealing with trauma, whether it's PTSD, or if they're like veterans, or if they're dealing with a chronic illness like Crohn's disease or MS or an epilepsy like myself. All those kinds of people feel like they can't relate to fitness people because a lot of people in the fitness industry tend to have been fit most of their life and have been able to learn the skills of discipline and all of that. And everyone has gone through trauma, but not as severe as these individuals have gone through. So I had one girl tell me that, her coaches just straight up told her they couldn't work with her because they just didn't understand how to help her. Right. And I realized, oh my goodness, there is a need for me to possibly step in this world and start helping people and become a wellness coach. And I was like, and I have a lot of mentors and people in the coaching industry tell me that, I could do a lot of good with this. And and I was like, yeah, that's great, but why would anyone want to listen to me? I'm young, I'm working on my personal training certification.
Awesome.
Different things like that, but I don't have like that PhD and whatever, but at the same time, I look at all these messages that are filling my DM and I'm like, but these people are still seeking out for help. And so I feel like I need to have a more structured way to help these people. And so we decided, with some of my mentors, they're helping me so that I can start launching, my wellness coaching. And I'm really excited.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And what's beautiful about, now this is beautiful to me, right? I can see the trepidation as you're telling this story and you're still kind of like, but I love that because I think, and again, we talked about this before we came on live, is, the myth of social media has been everything's perfect. Everything's just right. And, what I love about, you mentioned him earlier, what I love about Gary Vee is Gary Vee has one of the most influential platforms in the world right now. But he spends so much time telling people, don't worry about your following. Don't worry about those numbers. Just get your message out there. And that is so valuable to me because you just said it. Why would people want to listen? You know why people want to listen to you? Because you have a story. Because you have a humanness to your ability to help people, and they relate to that. People relate to other human situations. And so that's why I was drawn, to your Instagram feed, because I'm like, wow, this is different. Even though one picture is the show picture where you won, and it's like, yeah, wow, you can tell she worked hard. What I really liked more was the one where you're like on the couch going, no, this day sucked. Like today wasn't it. Because I knew immediately you had a humanity to you that so many people forget. That's why people will listen. People aren't going to listen because of your experience and your expertise. Now, you need that. People are going to listen because they're going to go, Amanda's relatable. Amanda is a human. Amanda knows what it's like. So, thank you. I love seeing the trepidation because that just means you're going to prepare yourself and you're going to be ready.
Oh, 100%. I'm not launching until I have everything ready to go, because if I'm going to help people, I need to do it right. Yeah. And my main thing is, what would I want someone to do for me?
Yes.
And that's why, even with my social media, if you scroll down a little more, it's very kind of superficial a little bit. I mean, it's still me, but it's still the more polished me. Right. And I'm still going to occasionally post, I still do photo shoots. They're fun to me, and I enjoy it. I'll still post those on occasion, but I really am trying to work so much harder now on just trying to share the reality of my life and how my mechanisms and how I've achieved the health and happiness that I have now, and how I'm going to continue utilizing them. Yeah. And you know what? And I'm going to share, more basics of the gym because I want to help people, because I was sharing these advanced things and I was like, I have followers that have no idea what they're doing, just like me, like I used to be. Yeah. And I'm like, I need to really break it down for them and help them. Like, I've realized recently, like you said, like Gary Vee said, like, who cares about the numbers? Because numbers mean nothing. Yeah. If it's not a genuine impact that you're making, you can't call yourself an influencer. I'm sorry.
Right. Like, no, I agree. Although I will back up and say, for everyone listening, we know the numbers represent you. So we're not saying it's totally like the numbers do represent people, unless you bought all your followers, then maybe not.
No. I'm grateful for those numbers.
Not you in particular, yeah. What we're saying is we're going to get this message of honesty and vulnerability out, whether one person is listening or a million. It's going to be the same message.
Thank you. That's what I meant.
That's what we're not devaluing you, brothers and sisters. We want you to. They're like, they don't care about numbers. Screw them.
I know.
All of a sudden, you have 5,000 less followers. You're like, what happened? No, we're not saying that at all. Okay. So, thank you so much for sharing your story and for being open and honest. And I'm telling you. You are going to continue to grow and to manifest all of this beautiful stuff because of your heart and your spirit and your vulnerability and what I call your humanity. It is in the depths of humanity that we find that connection. And I am telling you, people are going to be drawn to what you're doing and to your work. So thank you for taking a few moments to visit with this crazy guy, and I know people are going to watch this later and go, yeah, that's what I needed. So before we finish up, because we've gone a really long time here and I love it.
I'm sorry.
Any last things, words you want to, or encouragement or anything you want to say to everyone listening?
Oh yeah. If any of you are struggling, I want you to know you are not alone. Yes. You are definitely not alone. And your situation doesn't have to remain that way forever. You're in control of being able to change it to something more positive. Yeah. It's going to be a hard change. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be so worth it. And take that time, figure out what makes you you, figure out who you are deep down. Forget about everyone else and just focus on figuring out who you are and be kind to yourself. That's all.
Oh, I love that. Hey, Amanda, I'm going to finish up if you'll hang on. When I stop the video, don't hang up so you and I can chat afterward for a minute or two. So,
awesome.
Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Amanda. Make sure you follow her on Instagram. It's amanda.thicktofit. Just like it sounds, all letters, no numbers, amanda.thicktofit. Please give her a follow on Instagram. I promise you, you will not regret it. It's for everyone. She encourages everyone. But I would say if you are a woman, a female, or have daughters, I would encourage you especially to follow because she has some really inspiring thoughts, especially for girls out there. So make sure you follow her. If you are a person or know someone that deals with epilepsy and you do not have that bracelet or a tool like that, I'm sure you can just Google it. But please, that is a great tool for those of us that don't deal with that. If we're ever around you, we can help you out.
And message me, please, through Instagram.
Yes.
I love talking to all of you. So.
And I can say that's how Amanda and I connected, so she does respond. A lot of people I try and connect with, and that they just sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. So thank you for responding, or we never would have connected. So make sure, DM Amanda and let her know how she could help in any way, and she will do that for sure. So. Thank you, brothers and sisters. May you be well today, and may you have a day that is filled with light and love. Be kind to yourself. I love that. Show yourself some grace. And I will talk to you soon. Amanda, hang on, and we'll chat some more.